Happy Earth Day, everyone. I'm Greg Archer, and thank you for tuning into this special event with the inspiring and downright creative day, Schildkret. This is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and we cannot think of a more apt person to celebrate this milestone with than Day. Now, Day is internationally known for his morning altars and inspired tens of thousands of people of all ages across the globe to be awed by impermanent earth art. Love that word, that phrase. His captivating book, Morning Altars, a 7-step practice to nourish your spirit through nature, art, and ritual, generated great attention, revealing Day's unique talent and devotion to creating colorful mandalas that combine nature, art, and meditation. In his book, Day guides readers through the creation of morning altars, which is a 7-step process that includes wondering and wandering, place, meditation, clearing space, creating, gifting, walking away, and sharing his art with others. Today, Day graces us with a special Earth Day gift, the world premiere of his stop-motion animated short, Morning Altars. Day, welcome. It's really a joy to have you here today. Thank you for joining us here.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be here.
Yeah, happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. So I'm asking everyone, how has this time been for you during COVID-19, the pandemic? How has it been?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if the question is necessarily how it's been for me. I think the uniqueness of this time is how it's been for all of us. And it's a wondrous thing to be in something together. And so my experience is really reflecting most of my friends and family's experiences, which is up and down, broken and whole, left and right, back and forth,
Back and forth.
and
Yeah.
occasionally we get graced with the center of those things, of the directions. Occasionally we get graced with the in between, which looks a lot more still and looks a lot more considered and a lot more reflective. And so when I'm not swinging back and forth, then it's this moment of grace. So today, it just so happens I'm here in British Columbia, on an island called Salt Spring Island, and it's pouring outside. And I'm just a few minutes walk from a sacred First Nations reserve on the island.
Wow.
And the beach is literally across the street right here. And so it's a good moment to just remember how simple and beautiful and peaceful it is just here right now where I am.
That's lovely. That's wow, sublime. And
Yeah,
I like the backdrop too. I like the lighting behind you and the wood, and it's
thank you.
very nice. Uh, what do you feel this time has offered us in terms of a lesson? What do you think it's trying to teach us?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's too soon to tell. I think, you have to consider that oftentimes lessons are like a stew. Learning is like a stew, and
I
the
love
real tastiness, the real delicacy of it comes over time. And moments like this, moments of crisis, it's sometimes to try and mine the crisis for lessons too soon, um, almost goes against the lessons in themselves. And so, really, what this time is asking from me and from all of us, I really believe, is to not try and take too much right now, especially even learning. Don't try and take the learning too soon. It's really asking us to slow down enough to perhaps have a capacity to listen again. And it's the same thing, when we get sick as people. When you have a cold or a flu or a stomach bug, and it's the same kind of thing where your body's saying, stop doing what you're doing. You're out of balance. Rest. pull yourself out of all of your normal life and just let this thing move through you and try and write it out. And that to me is really what's needed from all of us right now, is this sense of listening to this much greater force that is um, almost an almost divine, or maybe almost is not the right word. Maybe it's just a divine being, also known as a virus, that is reminding us of our place in the greater scheme of things, which is perhaps that we don't exist at the very top of it.
Hmm.
We've forgotten where we really exist. And perhaps, again, this is reminding us that we are in relationship with our world, and to put ourselves back into a humble relationship again. Um, because we have, and this is immediately, we're into a climate change conversation. We're out of balance. We've forgotten our way of being within the world. We've forgotten the smallest ways of being, which is just to wonder at the world, and to praise our world. These healthy ways of being in relationship with the world, it's the same exact thing as being in a healthy relationship with another person. I mean, once you stop noticing the other person, you stop praising them, you stop wondering with them, and sharing time with them, the relationship starts to decay. And so
Right.
that's what's happening with our world right now, is our relationship is severely out of balance. The virus, in some capacity, is bringing us back into balance, just like any sickness is trying to do. And so my suggestion to those of us that are listening right now is, during this time, which I would consider to be a liminal time, refuse the normal. Refuse to stop trying to return back to normal. It's very similar to what Joseph Campbell talks about with the hero's journey. Once you cross that threshold, it's futile to try and go back.
Right.
Keep moving forward. Stop trying to return to normal. We might eventually get to this thing called normal again, but really, hopefully, it's bringing back gifts from this time that we're in right
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautifully put. It's beautifully put. Well, Day, you have had a very unique journey and path. And it's been wonderful to watch it unfold and explore. And the things that you share with everybody is just awe-inspiring. It just really kind of hits you. When did you know for sure that this would be your path, that this was what you were going to do?
now. Well, again, I think, I don't even know if today I'm sure. I think what makes a path is that you're willing to go off of it occasionally.
Yeah.
And especially as an artist, but also as a teacher, um, I just actually, before we spoke, I just gave a talk to my alma mater in Binghamton, at Binghamton University, Zoom call with all of the students there. And one of the girls asked me, she said, I'm a film student. And she said, I watch your art and I'm so curious, how do you know when to stop creating? How do you know when a piece is done? And I said to her, really, it's about playing with the edge. It's about taking the art to the edge and seeing how much you can ride that edge without falling off. And I said, but the way to learn the edge is that you have to fall off once in a while. You have to fail. You have to fuck up. You got to learn what it's like to fall off. And that is what I'm trying to achieve with this thing that you're calling a path, which is, I am writing an edge here. It's a very unusual thing to be creating in permanent art.
Hmm.
I've made thousands of pieces in my lifetime, and not one of them exists anymore. They all are just memories in a photograph.
Right.
Um, so it's a very unusual thing to be doing what I'm doing. But I'm on to something that's a little bit more edgy, which is to create a movement here. It's not just about me and my art. This is about offering a practice to people all around the world to make art out of the places that they live. And the edge of that, this path is inspiring people. It's like passing on the gift. I'm not holding it for myself, I'm passing it on.
Mhm.
um, just to give you a little backstory, I used to live in New York City in Times Square. I used to work on Broadway as a director in the theater. And I was indoors all of the time. And while I love storytelling and I love musical theater, the fact that I was indoors was killing me.
Hmm.
And so I eventually left that career as it was taking off, and I moved to California. And California, just the place I was living in, Richmond, California, was enchanting me. And it happened to be that around the time I moved, a few years after, my dad died, and about a year after that, I had a significant relationship breakup. And after my dad died, he left a dog, and that dog I claimed as my own. I adopted her.
Hmm.
And in that time period, I was very depressed and I was really experiencing a lot of grief from all of that loss. And so my dog and I would just go on these long morning walks, and she would just bring me up into the hills. And along the way, I would find these beautiful treasures from nature. This crow feather, or a cluster of elderberries, or a beautiful leaf with so many colors on it: yellow, green, orange, red. And one day we would walk to the top of this mountain, and we sat under this eucalyptus tree, and I saw these beautiful patch of amber colored mushrooms. And I sat down, and Greg, I did something that I think in retrospect I was doing with my mind, but I started to do it with my hands. And what I was doing with my mind was trying to figure out, when you're experiencing loss, you're trying to figure things out. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. Right.
And instead I was doing this with my hands at first. I was moving mushrooms and bark and flowers, and an hour went by like it was just a second. And I realized that it was lifting me out of the burden, the heaviness of my grief. And I challenged myself, could I return to that spot for 30 days and make one every day?
Hmm.
And I did. And I didn't stop after those 30 days. And it has
Wow.
been,
Yeah.
it
How long
has,
ago
it,
was that?
that was 7 years ago.
7 years ago. So you've been doing it every day for 7 years.
Yeah. And I'd say what's even more impressive is that every day I get morning altars from all over the world, of people making them in their backyards, in Poland, in Iran, in Cuba, in Brazil. And people just understanding how accessible it is, how helpful it is, how soothing it is, how much it brings people peace, how much it helps people make meaning in a chaotic world. And this is a practice that has been done for thousands of years all over the world. So it is an honor and a blessing that I have to be able to use my art to help people. And really what it's come down to is that this is a ritual. And the ritual is temporarily putting something in order and then letting it go.
Mhm.
And that's my career right now, is really teaching impermanence.
Mhm. And so obviously there's a sense of non-attachment to it all.
Yes, I mean, look, I, everything I create, I get attached. I'm a human being. I love the pieces. I would love to pick up this phone and show you all of the art I've made throughout the years, and yet none of it exists. And so the unattachment comes from the recognition that um, life is changing all of the time,
Mhm.
and really um, change and and impermanence is the other wing of the same of a bird, and the other wing is love. And when I make something and I have to let it go, it makes me love it even more. And that's just, I get to practice that every single time I make art, is I get to make something I love and let it go. And that is a very good practice for us right now, especially in this pandemic, which is to practice creating. We have to be creative. We have to be resilient. We have to use our imaginations right now. And at the same time, we have to practice letting go and allowing ourselves to be in collaboration with a much bigger world.
Right.
So in my art, sometimes that's the wind, sometimes that's the rain, sometimes that's an animal that comes and eats it. Sometimes it's the flower that just withers and dies when I don't want it to wither and die. And I get to feel limitations. And that's a very good thing for us to learn how to deal with, is limitations.
Yeah. So in the course of your day, from my understanding, you take a basket in the morning and you go on a walk. You remain very alert. You're watchful. You forage. You hike a hill or a creek bed, and
Or the city.
or the city, and you find these wonderful objects or pieces from nature, from life itself, and you create a space for that. And do you ever go back in the course of your day and see what happened to what you created in the morning?
Yes, I tend to always document the piece changing.
Okay.
And because the photograph is just a moment in time. It's just a memory of that moment before the wind, or before the squirrel stealing the nut, or it's just that moment. And so I like to document how the piece is changing, because really that's the collaboration, is that I'm collaborating with the wind and with the rain and with the animals, and I'm collaborating with it all. And it's as beautiful. My hand in this, I'm not going to lie, is beautiful. I make beautiful art. But the real lesson is that I'm not separate from nature. I'm making art with nature, and nature is making art with me.
Mm.
And sometimes we cooperate, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes the wind blows it all away way before I want it to. And I'm not a saint, and I don't say, like, thank you, wind. I actually curse and struggle and get upset. And it's humbling. And that's a very good place to be sometimes, is to be humbled by forces bigger than us.
Yeah. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So let's discuss Morning Altars, the animated short, which we will queue up in a moment, and God willing, everything goes well. So how was that process? How did that come into being? When did it hit you like, okay, this is what I'm going to create with this?
When did the process of doing altars come into being?
Well, just the creating the animated short itself.
Oh, the short. Oh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah, so the inspiration from this short stop motion animated film originated from a conversation with this well-known director in San Francisco. And he makes beautiful art, and he only takes on about 2 projects a year. And we had a meeting in the Bay Area about a year ago, and we both realized that we wanted to make a short film um, that was based on stop motion animation. And the reason is because the way that I see the world is as alive, and stop motion is a really great storytelling skill in film, to help make what we think inanimate objects, when we see them we think they're inanimate. It helps bring them alive. Growing up, I loved claymation for that reason, and so we realized that we wanted to create a film where the altar created itself, and that I was both a catalyst of that, but also a witness to that. And so the film really tells the story of, it asks the question at the end, what beauty are you creating with this precious life?
Mm.
That's the big question of the film. And the film evokes a sense of wonder and awe, and it's enchanting us to stop seeing the world as inanimate and mundane, and to start seeing our living world as alive and mysterious, and um and and for us to be in relationship with this mysterious and alive world.
Mm.
And so when you listen, if you listen to the short, when all the pieces start to move, all of the objects have their own sounds to them. So some of them sound like click, 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 or they sound like they're talking to each other. Um, they move differently. Some of them move like they're in the ocean. Some of them move like they're little ants. And so we really wanted to give this sense that all the little pieces have personalities to them. And so they're all very separate, but at a certain point in the film, they all decide to come together and make one beautiful piece together. So there's this theme of separation, or like aloneness and uniqueness, and then collaboration and togetherness. And the film ends with the piece decaying, because we are nothing's stagnant. So we're in a world where where chaos becomes order, and then order becomes chaos.
Mhm.
And so the film very gently tells that story um, of being in this world of chaos and order, and the movement between those things.
Yeah. Well, it's quite beautiful. And why don't we cue it up and we can share it with folks. I'm going to share our screen here and then we will share. So, Dave, thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah,
Morning,
I'm gonna
all.
make it larger, make the screen larger. Yeah. No, the
Have we forgotten how alive our world is? Forgotten the wonder and the smallness, the awe and the largesse. Maybe we start small, leave our comfort zone one step at a time, and let ourselves be taken on a journey. If we refuse to see our world as inanimate and mundane, and instead as a great mystery that thickens us, be astonished, be creative, and let it go. Now remember, disorder becomes order, which becomes disorder again. We are here so temporarily, so momentarily. So as a new day begins, let your imagination feed the world and ask yourself, what beauty are you creating with this precious life?
Mm. Wow. Wow. That's like, I have no words. It's so sublime
Was that your first time seeing it?
no, I've watched it quite a bit because
Oh
when we
yeah.
were coordinating this, but just, in every viewing, I am struck by something new that is in there that I haven't seen. For instance, this time, in addition to the colors and the dynamic way it was arranged and whatnot, I was really struck by the music that you folks chose, which was really, it just really
The
touched me.
taiko drumming.
Yeah, really touched me. So how long did this process take to create the short?
I'd say it was about a 4-month process from start to finish, from dreaming it up to the finalization. And a shout out to my collaborator called Vice Royal Studios, JP at Vice Royal. He's such a talented, wonderful director, and could not have done it without him.
Wow. So it took 4 months, 3 months, 4 months to create.
Yeah, 4 months. Yeah.
Wow. And how many different altars were created in the short?
Just one. The one that you saw. The ones at the end were pieces that I had made in the past. But the one that I made, I made that in the Presidio in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I got to this lookout point with the Golden Gate Bridge, literally just right there, and I got there at an hour or two before sunrise, and I worked in the dark for 2 hours, and then worked my butt off for the first 2 hours of the morning. With film, it's all about lighting. So you're trying to capture good light before the sun is too high up where you just can't see anything. So it was kind of a race to create the altar, and I never plan anything out before I do it. So everything is just a hope and a prayer. And I never know what I'm going to make, and I never know if it's going to come through. And so this one came through. It was very different than how I thought it was going to be. It's very different than anything I've ever made. And so we had that piece. I created that, and then we did the stop motion for a lot of it that day. But we really had to recreate that piece a few times so that we could complete the stop motion, because it takes time.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine like what a process. And it
Because
was
every flower needs to be, you're basically stop motion. You're taking a photograph and then changing it, taking a photograph and changing it. So it's kind of like a flip book. And so it takes time to photograph it and then move every little thing on the altar, photograph it, move every little thing so that it looks like it's moving.
right. And it was you and the director, right?
Yeah, and my assistant.
And your
Yeah.
assistant. Wow, what a process. When you look at it now, what comes to mind?
Well, in some way, growing up, I was very inspired by the film Rivers and Tides, which is Andy Goldsworthy's first film,
Brilliant film.
which is yeah. And so when I first spoke to JP, we were using that as a resource, because it's like a meditation watching that film. Um, and I love Andy. He's does incredible work in this world. And so that was the point of inspiration. But in some way, I wanted this film to be somewhat mysterious. So if you notice, my character is rather mysterious. He's not in the film. He's not talking. it's almost like a combination of he's a catalyst and a witness at the same time.
Yeah.
And really, I wanted to showcase in the film the material, the nature being the main protagonist, and especially the pine cone. And so I wanted to take this out of it being a human-centric film and really give this film over to the plants and the shells and the berries, and to really, and Andy Goldsworthy does this too, really ask us how we can be in collaboration with nature, you know, rather than it's always kind of our creativity. I see creativity more as a gift that we're granted, and so nature is also granted the same gift of creativity. And so the film, really, I want it to be a love story, for both wondering at our world, and also being creative, creating beauty with this world, because life loves beauty.
Hmm.
And so the more that we can create beauty in the world, the more alive our world is.
I love that. Life loves beauty.
It sure does.
Quotable, so quotable, so tweetable. What do you love most about what you do?
Well, I would say first and foremost, um, I love doing something that feels both very new and modern and very old at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, this is, you know, you can go back a very long time to see human collaborating with nature to make art. You know, art in some ways is a reflection of the times that we're in. And so I love that my art lends itself to dedication and devotion, that it can be an offering to the time that we find ourselves in, either personally, like, you know, if someone dies or someone's born, or, you know, you lose a job, you get a job, or you wake up scared or you wake up grateful. That the art itself, that's why I call them altars, is because they're a dedication to the times that we're in. They lend itself to that. And I especially love connecting people back to the earth. And so today's Earth Day, which is kind of a little bit silly because every day should really be Earth Day. But I really love bringing people either a big step closer or a tiny little step closer back to falling in love with our earth again, and to teaching people the language that the earth speaks in, which is the language of awe and wonder.
Hmm.
And if we can just, for even a moment of our days, leave our house and just wonder at a tree or at a leaf or at bark, for just 1 minute a day, you're exercising a muscle that for kids, they're very strong with wondering and being curious. But as adults, we atrophy in this muscle.
Right.
And so I'm advocating this art. What I love about it is that it really brings people into a sense of wonder and curiosity about things that are rather ordinary, like leaves and feathers. But if they're arranged in a certain way, people say wow, or ooh, or ah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the language that our planet is asking us to speak again, is to behold her, to behold the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow, I love that. Uh, you may have touched on this, but you know, is it? I was going to ask you, what brings you a real sense of wonder and awe? You know, is it nature? Is it this creative process? Is it all
No,
of it?
no, what brings me a sense of awe is the endings.
Really? So explain that.
Beginnings too, for sure, but endings bring me into awe, because as soon as something starts to end, the love increases exponentially. And maybe you experience this with anything ending in your life. But as soon as something starts to change, it becomes quite a moment to behold. And the love just is, you can just feel it. And so that's what I love about this, is that my art is not stagnant. It's changing. And I'm right now in British Columbia in Canada, and I'm on a writing retreat as I'm writing my next book, which is on rituals. And the book right now, the working title is called Ritualizing Change.
Hmm.
And we have so many moments of change in our lives, and yet, do we mark those moments? And what do we do to mark them, to make them more meaningful? And as a creator, we're all creative, whether we think we are or not. We can do something to mark these small and big moments of our lives so that they don't pass us by.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm focused on right now, which is incorporating the morning altars into a much larger landscape, which is really ritual. And I'm an etymology junkie, Greg. So do you know
Love that word.
the etymology of the word ritual?
Tell me.
The etymology of the word ritual means to count, or another way of saying that is ritual helps us count in the same way that maybe a dancer counts music. Like
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they count to find their way into the choreography, right? That's why they count, so that they can align themselves with the music. And ritual really is that. It's a way that we mark time so that we can find and remember our way back into life again. Because being a human being, it's very easy to forget. It's like kind of one of the trademarks of being a human is we forget. So ritual helps us remember, and it does that by through counting our way back into the rhythm of life, is another way of saying it.
Right. Beautiful. Oh, I love that. Wow. Wow. Sit with that for a moment. How would you say that this work or this process has helped you expand your own human potential?
Well, I would first say it's been very humbling, and I think that's a quality that I'm always advocating for, both in myself and with other people. I would say, like, the potential to be humbled is the first and foremost one. And then I think the second one is to see how impactful this work has been, not necessarily, yes, for me, but um, I get mail all the time from people all over the world who are making this with their kids, or with themselves, with their partners, with their elderly parents. And the mail sometimes looks like this. I'll get an altar that someone made, because it's the 10th anniversary of their mother's death, and they had no idea how to honor that, and maybe something inside of them is really missing their mother. And nowadays, maybe we just have Facebook as a way to remember people. We don't really do anything to remember people anymore. And yet, sometimes I have mailed where someone finds me on Instagram, gets inspired, goes outside to their backyard or behind their kids' school, or to the beach down the street, or in the city park, and they collect a few things, and they spend a little bit of time arranging, and they make something for their mother. And maybe they put a prayer out there for their mom,
Mm-hmm.
and they speak to their mom a little bit, in the presence of this handmade thing. And then it changes, it blows away or rolls away. And in the end, more often than not, I get emails and letters from people that say that it was the first time that they felt as close to their mother as they did when she died.
Hmm.
And so that is the potential that I'm speaking into here, which is that people are employing this art practice to make their lives more meaningful, to remember their people, to give gratitude. This Sunday, I'm doing an Earth Day workshop online as a way to offer gratitude altars back to the earth. So I'm really contending both in my life and with my audience to stop. May we stop taking so much from the planet, and may we all practice giving back more, and beauty especially.
Beauty especially. And that's Sunday the 26th, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
April 26th. Okay.
10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And people can go to morningaltars.com to get more information or to RSVP.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, one last question for you. What's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
Resilience.
Resilience.
Yep. That is definitely something I continue to learn about myself, and more so, my resilience is found in trusting that I am cared for. And so, I have a tendency, and this is true in my family and probably my ancestry, to worry and to be suspicious and to be scared that there isn't enough.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, so much is changing on my work, and all of it was canceled. And so that was very humbling to encounter, and I'm not alone in that. Millions of people are having work that's canceled right now.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, there's something else that's happening for me in my life that is requiring me to still proceed, to not collapse, but to still proceed with my curiosity and um, and vigilance intact. To still stay curious about things, to still stay trusting towards life, and not to pull away in fear. And so we live in a mystery, Greg. We are in a great mystery.
Indeed we do. Yeah.
And the language of the mystery is to not try and solve it, because you can't solve this mystery of life. So the best way to do that is to ask really good questions, to stay really curious, to stay interested, to let your childlike wonder out, be creative, and as I said in the film, to let it go, so that when plans change.
Yeah. Yeah.
New plans.
There's a sort of a grace of surrender and trust in all that too,
Yeah. And
yeah, it's very eloquent and articulate in how you share, and I think a lot of us can resonate with everything you shared. And I just want to thank you so much for taking a moment here on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. 50 years. It's just
yeah. Wow. I just saw on my screen Earth Day Canada just shared my video, which is exciting. And I think one last point about Earth Day to the audience here, which is it is crucial that we, and especially that the younger generations, protect and defend our earth, our planet, our beautiful waters and air and soil against greed and misuse. That is crucial. We have to continue to protect and defend our earth. However, we also must bring beauty and gift that back to the earth. And I do it with nature. But if your jam is music or art or poetry or whatever, or even a kind word, but I am an advocate for beauty. More beauty. We have to give, you know, our relationship with the earth needs to be reciprocal. So as much as we take, we have to also give back. And that's real good hospitality. There's a lot of giving and receiving that's happening.
Mhm.
And so the earth is our host, and we can't just take from her. We have to give back. And as I said earlier, life loves beauty, and our earth is alive, and she loves beauty too. So I wish that today on Earth Day, we don't just protect and defend and bring awareness to her, but we also do something or make something beautiful to give back.
Mm. Yes, yes. Wow. I think a lot of us
Please.
can really, truly take that in today. So, Day, thank you again for sharing your gifts with us. For those of you who want to keep track of what Day is up to, go to morningaltars.com. You can find him on Facebook or Instagram at Morning Altars. I will
And that's an Altars, because
Yes,
sometimes people think it's altars with an E.
right. And in a way, the altars do alter us.
They do.
Yeah. So at Morning Altars with an A at Instagram, I will post about Day's upcoming workshop at Esalen later on this year. You really are a sage and brilliant, and thank you for all that you give us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to well, hopefully the workshop still happens at Esalen in the late summer. I'm very excited to teach this amazing practice and bring it to the Esalen community. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Day. All right, everyone, you be well, be safe, stay connected with us. Go to esalen.org/learn. Click on learn more about all of our ways to stay connected with each other. We have a whole bunch of new blogs up there. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. We love you all. Thank you and happy Earth Day.